Hi, this is Phil Shapiro. I work at a public library in Maryland, and I'm very interested in the range of questions that people bring to the library. The range is usually very wide. Most often, librarians answer ready reference questions. These are questions that are factual questions that somebody could look up. But in some cases, people's questions that they have that they don't ask the library are more involved questions but are very important to them. So I was thinking, what kind of a reference question might somebody have if they were unemployed and they were facing a winter situation and they needed to stay warm in their apartment or house? So how can you stay warm during a winter? Let's treat that question as a reference question. And let's see if we can pool our knowledge from many libraries and many communities and come up with some interesting answers. This is kind of a hypothetical question, but maybe it's not hypothetical if you're facing this kind of situation, which people are. So I'd like to start this short journey with this quote from R. David Lankeys, professor at University of South Carolina and the director of the School of Library and Information Science there. This really resonated with me. The mission of librarians is to improve society through facilitating knowledge creation in their communities. Kind of what I'm doing right here. I'd like to facilitate the creation of knowledge that can address these people's situation. If you're interested in learning more about Lankeys' ideas, he's written many books, but two of his most outstanding are Expect More, Demanding Better Libraries for Today's Complex World, and the very recent The New Librarianship Field Guide. If your own public library or college library doesn't have these books, I strongly recommend buying them. They are very interesting reading. So, when a house has no heat on cold winter days and nights, people are unable to read books. We should change that. So, this is an article that I found on opensource.com. Don Watkins is an educator in Western New York, and he was writing about this low-cost robotic hand for amputees. And this really got me thinking that you can download an open source design and 3D print this prosthetic hand. So I went looking to find some more about this stuff. Here's the company or the entity, the website where you can download it. It's called Open Bionics. And here they're on Twitter as well. You can follow them on Twitter to stay up to date with what they're doing and the different news stories. And here's a news story that was really interesting. There's a 5-year-old girl in Texas. She needed a prosthetic hand. She was on a waiting list. She got tired of waiting. Her mom found out that a public library in her area had a 3D printer. Mom calls the library. Can you 3D print my daughter a prosthetic hand? The library says, we're going to give it a shot. And this is what they printed. They printed this 3D hand, so that's kind of interesting. Here's the library that's meeting a community need. And when I heard about this story, I said, well, if the library can meet this kind of community need, what other kind of community needs can libraries be meeting? Here's Caitlin. She's riding her bicycle. She loves to ride her bicycle. And here she is with her little sister. She likes to walk hand in hand with her little sister. These are the people who printed out this 3D prosthetic hand. Some of these are library staff. I think there's one person on library staff and some community volunteers. So you can go and look at this video on YouTube. 5-year-old girl thrilled to receive a prosthetic hand from the library. And then we're back here. I needed to put this in a second time. The mission of librarians is to improve society through facilitating knowledge creation in their communities. We call that process convening. When we bring together people, the library staff, or anybody, when you bring together people to solve a problem, that's called convening. Convening is a pooling of minds to solve practical problems. So, how to keep community residents warm on a cold winter days and nights using a maximum of ingenuity and a minimum of energy in a very safe way. This is the kind of reference question that somebody could bring to the library, but not typically. This is not your typical library question, but let's pretend as if this is a question that is important, because it is. This question is important. So one idea I had is to use indoor heat-insulated tents. The idea is to keep the residents warm without having to heat the entire house or apartment. I work at the library, so I went searching. I said, who makes an insulated tent that you can use outdoors? Because an insulated tent you can use outdoors, you could use the same tent indoors. And there is this Irish inventor, Derek O'Sullivan, who has invented something called a thermo tent. And here's an article from 2015. It's kind of neat. It doesn't look like it's all that expensive. There's different sizes. And here's the thermo tents. They had a Kickstarter, and then they had equity crowdfunding. There's equity crowdfunding on a website called Seedrs, SEEDRS.com. But I didn't want to just stop at one insulated tent. I wanted to think broadly. So I said, where else could I find something? And I went looking for ice fishing shelters. So here in the United States in the wintertime, in the northern states, people sometimes go out onto a lake when the ice is a foot or 2 feet deep. Usually, I guess, a foot deep. Because 2 feet, you have to, if you're going to go ice fishing, you have to cut through the ice to do the fishing, and 2 feet is a lot of ice to cut through. So 1 foot maybe, or less. And this particular tent only cost $270. Some of these ice fishing shelters are insulated and some are not. And this one it's a pop-up tent. It uses these fiberglass structure. It's very easy to set up. And it weighs 35 pounds. It's about 56 square feet, so maybe it's about 7 by 7 feet, and you can stand up in it. Now, 35 pounds is not that heavy, generally speaking. It's probably about the same weight as this inflatable plane. If you want to go see the inside of these kind of structures, there's a nice YouTube video called Ice Fishing Shelter Comparison, and there's a videography tour of different tents, and you get a real sense of what it's like to be inside these tents. Now, how do you heat up the indoor tent? So one idea I have is use these 12-volt card window defroster. These are very inexpensive, cost $12 or $13, and they don't kick off a lot of heat. In fact, they kick off just a little bit of heat, but they don't use a lot of electricity either. And this might be the ideal kind of solution to keep a small area warm without using a lot of electricity. Now, it's possible also some of the houses or apartments that are setting up these indoor tents, they might not have electricity. So we have to try and figure out how to bring like battery-powered electricity or other kind of mechanisms. Here's a review of that affordable 12-volt window defroster. And they said here, the heat output of this device is about 180 watts. It's about 1/9 of what a hairdryer puts out. So that's actually good news. That's the kind of solution I was looking for. Just a little bit of heat to keep the small area warm. We don't want it to be 90 degrees inside the tent. We just want it to be like 70. So now, how can we get electricity, 12-volt electricity, flowing through that little heater? Here's one idea. There's ways of doing that. You might have a hydraulic jack where if a person was in good physical condition, they could jack up a weight, any kind of weight. It could be cinder blocks. It could be gallons of like milk gallons that are filled with water. But any kind of weight that gets lifted up and that could slowly fall down over the period of an hour or two or something like that overnight. And this is a mechanical solution to like a mechanical battery, I would call it. The gearing on this is a little difficult. As I try to imagine it, you have to set up the gears. And as the weights are falling, they would turn something like a 12-volt power drill. If you turn the bit of a 12-volt power drill, you get 12 volts of electricity coming out. And those 12-volt power drills, they're also pretty affordable, about $30 or $50, not that expensive. Also, you could bring some heat from the outside into this tent. I'm calling this solar suitcases, and I made a video about this a couple of years back. And I called it, Can We Harvest the Sun? Where you, just like a home brew, little greenhouses, kind of suitcases that are in the shape of like a greenhouse that can absorb heat on any kind of material that is painted black. It could be like 2 or 3 bricks or something like that. And then you bring that into the tent at nighttime. If you have feedback, you're welcome to contact me. I'm on Twitter at Phil Shapiro, or send me an email, pshapiro@his.com. And in case you're wondering, I'm making this screencast on my Linux laptop. I have a Lenovo T400 Core 2 Duo laptop. It's maybe about 8 or 10 years old. It works really nicely for my screencasting. I'm using a Logitech webcam C920. And I have an external monitor on this laptop, a 23-inch monitor, because I like to make things 1920 by 1080. It just ends up being more interesting to view. Over and out. Hope this gave you some ideas. And in your own community, I'd love for you to start discussions about how the community as a whole can convene and figure out solutions to community needs. Because when you do that process, you can knit social fabric, and the people who are benefited by the group problem solving, they'll be very grateful.